In this video, I'm going to talk about 3 things that the majority of people in your country are doing that's going to keep them broke, or at very best, a lot broker than they could be. Hey guys, I'm Andrew Henderson, and if you want to learn how to work with my team and I to develop your Nomad Capitalist strategy, you can go to nomadcapitalist.com. Now, let's talk about 3 things that I see a lot of people doing that's guaranteed to keep them broke or broker than they should be. These are things that I've learned as I've traveled around the world and spent the last 12 years researching and living the Nomad Capitalist lifestyle. So let's get into it. Thing number 1 is keeping up with the Joneses. Now, I live all around the world, I have homes around the world, and one thing that allows me to do is somewhat detach from the culture. I have some expat friends, in many cases I have some local friends. But when I lived in the United States, there's no way I wouldn't have a car, right? I mean, now cars are things that you buy, they go down in value like you wouldn't believe. You basically light your money on fire if you own a car. And if you own a luxury car, then you're lighting a lot of money on fire. So take Malaysia, for example. All of my Malaysian friends whom I spend time with in Kuala Lumpur are absolutely in shock that I don't own a car. They say, how do you live in Kuala Lumpur without a car? I said, I live in an area that's walkable, and I walk everywhere. And occasionally I go to a different area, and I'll get an Uber, or now I'll get a Grab. But I love to walk, and so sometimes you'll see me walking 40 minutes from my house to the Majestic Hotel to have a cocktail in the late afternoon, or you'll see me walking around to one of the malls or one of the parks or whatever. I like walking, and so because I've defined my life in my own little bubble of places that I enjoy being, I don't have to have a car. Now, for you, maybe you like cars. Some guys that I talk to and that we help, they couldn't imagine living without a car. But in every culture, there are just certain things that you have to do to keep up with the Joneses. Cars are just one of them. I've told the story before about how I met with a gentleman 5 or 6 years ago at this point, and he came from Denmark. And he said, Andrew, I've got a lot of friends in Denmark who earn 300,000 euros a year, and by the end of the year, they have nothing left. They don't save anything. They have nothing to show for it. All their money goes into Audi SUV payments, for their wife, goes into BMW payments for themselves, goes into living in the right neighborhood, goes into all this stuff, sending your kids to the right schools. Now, of course, if you want to have a car, fine, have a nice car. You want to have a house, have a nice house. Yes, of course, I believe in educating your children, but let's be honest. If you're one of those people, you're probably sending your child to that school not because it's necessarily the best or even better than the less expensive one, because that's where all your friends send their kids, because that's the cool thing to do. I mean, I don't have personal experience with this, but I've heard stories from friends of mine who were bankers, for example, in New York, and there's just this society that people live in, this bubble that they live in their own countries where, oh, you're 6 months old. Are you trying to get them into the such and such school when they're, oh, you better hurry. Oh, what will you do if your child doesn't get into the school? Oh, we couldn't possibly. Could you imagine that their child isn't going to the school? Oh, we can't hang out with them. These are the things that people do to keep up with the Joneses. And what I can tell you is, yeah, I like living in nice neighborhoods. But when I go to a city, I don't say, where do all the rich people live? That's where I want to be. I say, where do I like? And a lot of times, it's less expensive because I don't have to keep up with anybody. I'm buying houses, cars, schools, and everything else because I like it. So that's number 1. If you're keeping up with the Joneses, you're going to lose a lot of money over the course of your life. And if you're like those guys in Denmark, you might lose millions of dollars and not really save much money. The number 2 reason people will be much broker than they should be is that they think small. Now, this is kind of related to keeping up with the Joneses. In one way, keeping up with the Joneses makes us think that we're rich because, your network is your net worth. If you have 5 friends or 5 families that you hang out with, as long as you're keeping up with them, you feel like, hey, you're doing pretty well. Why strive for more? The guy who is the partner at a Big 4 accounting firm making 300,000 euros a year figures, hey, I'm doing fantastic. And this is something that I guess I never really had this gene. I never had this gene of confidence. I've always looked at it as, hey, I just had a great month. I've had so many record months over my last 15 years of business, and I always think, this could be my last good month. It could be all downhill from here. And that humbles me. I think a lot of people don't have that because they just figure, hey, as long as I can keep up with my friends, I'm cool. But, when I lived in the United States, I ran a number of businesses, and I did pretty well, and that's what allowed me to become the nomad capitalist and have money to do that with, and not start out, with no money when I was first traveling. But I can tell you, if I would have had the perspective of the greater world in general, I would have been much more successful in business, because traveling around the world, I see people who make $1 million, $5 million, $10 million. Now, in the course of the work that we do at Nomad Capitalist, we've worked with guys with 9 and even 10-figure net worths. Now, you may not be in an opportunity where people in your business have those net worths, or where you're really working with them that closely. But being outside of my home country has opened my mind to, yeah, people make a lot of money. And I think the challenge of living in a certain bubble, I know there are folks who are just getting started in the digital nomad scene, and sometimes I'll hear, oh, are there any digital nomads who make more than $10,000 a month? Yeah, there are a lot of them. There are digital nomads who make more than $100,000 a month. We just have a guy right now who lives in Southeast Asia in one of these kind of flip-flop, tank top wearing kind of places, which is cool. The guy's making over $4 million a year. Right? And I guarantee you that people running around in their own little circle, because they've kind of transplanted their circle from where they're from to their circle where they are now, and they're asking, hey, does anybody make more than 10 grand a month? Yeah, this guy makes $4 million, right? And so, obviously, you can put yourself in a bubble anywhere you go, but I think the easiest way to put yourself in a bubble is to stay in your country, not travel, not get out, and just surround yourself with people who don't think on a global level. And so I think if you add the global thinking that we talk about at Nomad Capitalist, you'll be a lot better off, and you'll have a lot more money. I can tell you for myself personally, my income is higher now that I'm outside of the United States, because I'm just thinking bigger. I act bigger, and therefore I'm forced to think bigger. Now, the number 3 reason that's going to keep people broke, including that guy for the 300,000 euro salary, is high taxes. Denmark, just as one example, of course, has very high taxes. Most Western countries, if you earn any kind of decent money, have pretty high taxes, 40, 50, even 60% in some cases. And isn't it interesting how water seeks its own level? Isn't it interesting how that guy, and I keep going back to the example, the guy who's, again, maybe he's the partner at a big 4 company, maybe he's the vice president at a bank, whatever kind of job he has, he makes 300,000 euros, he pays half of it in tax, and then everything else he needs just so happens to cost what's left, okay? This is where the arbitrage of being a nomad capitalist really makes sense, because you might save 0 or a very small amount of money in your home country. When you go overseas and you live the nomad capitalist lifestyle, you're going to get tax savings in most cases. You're going to not be keeping up with the Joneses, and you might, because of those 2 things, because you're now inspired to think bigger, you might actually make more money than you ever have before. And so taxes, to me, are the great unequalizer in the sense that they really beat people down to size. And so if you can eliminate that piece, or at least drastically eliminate your taxes by going and living in a much more tax-friendly environment, you're going to have a lot more money to save. Now, obviously, the challenge that a lot of people have is they don't even see the taxes coming out of their paycheck, right? Especially in a lot of European countries, it's like, oh, here's your net pay. And they don't even know what the taxes are, right? But the taxes always have an effect, right? If I'm an employer, I can't pay you more than you're worth. So that means if the taxes are higher, you get less. If the taxes are lower, you get more. So, someone who wanted to work for me in Belgium would get more money in their pocket if they worked for me in Montenegro, because I would pay them the same, but they'd get to keep more money. And so to me, taxes is really the number 3 thing. And it's the one that most people overlook, because most people just think, well, this is the way it is. They're just going to take 57% of my money. But again, if you look beyond your own borders, I think you'll find some places where not only can you have a lot better lifestyle, you can be a lot more comfortable, you can grow and think a lot bigger, and you can keep a lot more of your money. If you do those things, I guarantee you over 10 years, let alone a lifetime, you'll have a 7-figure sum piled up if you're a successful entrepreneur. Hi, I'm Andrew Henderson from Nomad Capitalist. I wrote this book, which you can find on Amazon, to distill a lot of the stuff we talk about in these videos and a lot of the stuff I've learned over the last decade plus traveling all around the world, teaching you about how to legally reduce your taxes, build your personal freedom, and create wealth faster. Definitely get a copy of this book if you want to learn more. Now, if you want to watch more videos, make sure you subscribe to our channel and make sure you click the notifications bell so you never miss one of our new videos with more tips on how to go where you're treated best. And if you're already a 6 or 7 figure entrepreneur and you'd like to put these strategies in place for yourself, go to nomadcapitalist.com and learn about how I can help you.